Round 8, the French Grand Prix. It won't live super long in the memory, but there's still a couple of little moments to get our teeth into, especially the last lap battle. But let's start with the first lap. So the first thing to look at is Sebastian Vettel. Started only 7th on the grid. He had a really poor qualifying session, really. And actually, as the lights went out, he reacts really slowly. And the lights actually went out very quickly in the French Grand Prix, within the restrictions that the FIA can impose for the 5th light coming on and then going out. But it caught Sebastian Vettel out. He admitted it afterwards. He didn't expect it to go out so quickly. So simply, he reacts slower than the McLarens ahead. And soon we'll see Daniel Ricciardo coming through on the right-hand side then as well. So Ricciardo started 8th. But Vettel does well to go around the outside of Ricciardo. He's braver at turn 1. Ricciardo's a bit cautious in the middle of the pack there. So Vettel's around the outside, but there we go. Gasly's now on Vettel's right. He's really, really tight there, Sebastian Vettel, between the Renault, between the Red Bull, and he manages to go around the outside of Gasly then at turn 2 and get back to his 7th place. So from 7th on the grid, I'm sure he wanted to be pushing further forward. He got caught out by the start lights and in the end did well just to recover to 7th. Further back, there was a bit of drama for Sergio Perez. Gets an okay start. He's behind Kimi Raikkonen and Nico Hulkenberg on the left-hand side. So now, if I pause it there for Sergio Perez, into turn 3, he's now got Magnussen ahead, he's got Albon ahead, and if you look beyond that, you've got Kimi Raikkonen and Nico Hulkenberg. The two men actually started behind, but they've now got Magnussen and Albon between them and Sergio Perez. So Perez has lost a good bit of ground in the first corner. Now he goes in too hot, he locks the right front, has a bit of oversteer, and he does the sensible thing. If he tries to stay on the track, he's going to spin there. So Perez, he goes right to the left-hand side and around that bollard there, which you have to do in the rules to try and avoid gaining an advantage and to rejoin safely. There's this little route that's marked out by the FIA. But look, as he rejoins, again, I pause it, Hulkenberg and Raikkonen. So where have Albon and Magnussen gone? They're now behind Sergio Perez. So clearly he's gone off track and he's passed 2 cars. 5-second penalty for Perez.
5-second penalty. We know that you did around the bollard, but you gained an advantage.
I don't know what I did wrong. It's impossible for me to judge where I am.
In Perez's sort of mitigation for the penalty, he probably will have no idea who he was ahead, who was behind. So actually trying to feed in the right place is nigh on impossible. But absolutely fair dues for Perez, no argument. Although I can see why he was a bit confused, because technically he followed the procedure. He went around the outside of the bollard, but you can't still get in 2 places. Otherwise everyone would do it every lap. Just it's the quicker route. The final lap of the Grand Prix, the next big talking point, and an amazing battle between 4 drivers. Lando Norris has driven a very, very good weekend, but he has had hydraulic problems for 20 laps. So his car is slowly shutting down. He's losing a lot of functions and gradually falling into the clutches of Daniel Ricciardo.
You're just going to do the best you possibly can. Ricciardo is now the car behind you.
And going with Ricciardo is Kimi Raikkonen and Nico Hulkenberg. They've pitted later and they've got fresher tyres as well. So they're all bunching up behind Norris, who's just struggling away in his McLaren now, trying to get to the finish. Ricciardo goes for the outside. He's actually slightly ahead under braking and goes for it. He's committed to the outside, but goes off the track, comes back on, and in coming back on, Norris then goes off track on the outside. Raikkonen comes through, and so now the order's completely flipped from into the corner to out the corner. Raikkonen now leads the pack. He was 3rd out of the 4 before. So let's go on board with Daniel Ricciardo for this. Picks up the slipstream, big closing speed on Norris, goes to the outside, brakes as late as he dares. In fact, he's a little bit too late, and he doesn't manage to stop the car in time. He's just understeering off the track. But if I pause it there, he's actually less than a car's width away from the apex. So it's not quite like the Verstappen incident, the Vettel incident from Canada, where he's coming from off the track, going the whole way across the circuit and putting Raikkonen off the circuit in Japan or Hamilton towards the wall in Canada. Clearly, Ricciardo has now passed Norris with the aid of going off the circuit. So if not an unsafe rejoin, then there's an advantage from going off the circuit for Ricciardo. Then we carry on, and Kimi Raikkonen's ahead. Now here, if I pause, Raikkonen's covered the inside. There's quite clearly not a space for Ricciardo to go to the right-hand side, because that white line next to Raikkonen's rear tyre there is the edge of the circuit. All the space is to the left. Now Ricciardo here simply makes an error of judgment. He goes to the right-hand side and is driving off the track. On a normal circuit, this would be grass, gravel, old school sort of stuff. Street circuit will be a wall there. That one is a slam dunk 5-second penalty. Clearly went off the circuit, getting the place. If he'd gone to the outside, he probably would have had the momentum to pass Raikkonen anyway. Certainly have a good fight down towards turn 11. On the one hand, I have a bit of sympathy for Ricciardo because he tried to go for a move. It was on the outside, it was a brave move on the last lap. We love that sort of stuff. But one thing for me with this Lando Norris on board, Hulkenberg gets on the curb, and now look, Norris, despite his ailing car, is going for one of the most audacious moves of the season here, around the outside of Bose. Really quick, long right-hander. And Norris, with all his car issues, gets so far alongside the outside of Nico Hulkenberg. And now this, for me, could have been move of the season. But if I pause it there, you can see Norris, he's not completely alongside Hulkenberg, almost alongside, not quite. But Hulkenberg basically just doesn't give him any space whatsoever. And if I pause it again there, look where Hulkenberg ends up in the corner. He's right to the curb as well. So clearly there's no space for Lando Norris. Now, Hulkenberg really was a bit naughty, forcing Norris off the road like that. In that corner, turn 11, according to the rules, sometimes this sort of thing is sort of let go when Norris isn't completely alongside and the driver on the inside can sort of choose his line towards the outside. People hate penalties. I appreciate that, and I'm not calling out for a penalty for Nico Hulkenberg here, but I do think Hulkenberg could have given him a bit more space. They could have had a great fight down to turn 12, then Norris could return the space back for Hulkenberg. In the grander scheme, it would be nice if we could go back to the time where if someone's alongside, you can't just force them off the road. You have to give them a bit of space, and we see these races go on and on through more than one corner. Intra-team battles, always interesting, always your toughest rival to try and beat because they've got the same car as you, they've got all your data, you're working together, but again, against each other through the whole weekend as well, so they're a constant reference. Daniel Kvyat and Alexander Albon in the Toro Rossos had a nice little battle, lap 45, and this is a nice fight. Albon defends at turn 8, Kvyat then has a nice run out towards turn 10 now at the scene. Albon covers the inside, and again there you see Kvyat then could have gone to the inside even more, but he took the outside, stayed on the track, and now they go side by side through scene. Super impressive, really fast corner, and Albon gives his teammate some room, which is good to see there. And Kvyat can't go through that time, looks for a switch back in Bose, but again this corner is so tough to overtake on. But next time that Daniel Kvyat gets the chance, again down at turn 8, long straight, DRS, and probably Alexander Albon has got not a lot of energy of his battery to use. The closing speed is huge, and I imagine Kvyat's just been holding it back a little bit. Huge closing speed, goes for the outside, under braking, and makes it stick. Look, 3/4 of his car off the road, but crucially the left-hand side's still on. That means he's on the track, that means it's a fair move. And a good move for Daniel Kvyat. It didn't get him any points, but it was a nice one-up for a guy that started right at the back of the field. Speaking of right at the back of the field, the Williamses, and a really nice battle between them as well. George Russell then exited the chicane. This was really the key overtaking place through the weekend. And Russell goes to the outside. Kubica keeps his foot in on the inside. Bit of a correction early from Russell. And then Kubica, again, really doesn't leave his rival much space on the outside. Russell has to blend out of the throttle and has to slot back in behind his teammate. He's actually hit the marker board with his left side of his front wing there, and that proves very costly to Russell later on because that damages the front wing slightly, and that gets worse and worse through the run, and that means he's got to take a second pit stop later in the Grand Prix. So next time of asking, Russell's still now frustrated behind his teammate. He's told his team that he's quicker. He doesn't expect team orders, but he's quicker just to let them know. I think they'll have known already, but Kubica defends then into turn 8 this time. Russell's a little bit closer than he was the last lap, and now he gets on the power out of turn 9. Kubica holds the right hand side right up to that white line again. Then he moves towards the middle. Russell could have actually fitted his car just before seen on the right hand side, but that would have been madness into a flat out corner. So Russell goes for the outside and then just keeps his foot right in now. He's going to take no prisoners this second time. Really gutsy stuff there from Russell. Kubica this time very fair, gave him some space as well. Great move. He had such a strong race weekend really, George Russell. He got in the car, first lap of qualifying, having not driven the car for a day, when everyone else has had an hour pounding round in the morning. And his first lap was more than a second clear of Kubica, and it wasn't too far away from the racing points ahead. It was unbelievably good to just dial in like that really impressive. Even at the end of the race, took 2 pit stops, was charging back towards his teammate as well, finished only 9 seconds behind. That's all he can do. Williams really need to start improving. I thought at one point this weekend they were almost getting towards the back of the pack, but then the race always exaggerates the gap again. You've got to beat your teammate if you're George Russell. Mercedes young driver, still trying to prove everything he can. Sure, the Williams car is not what he wants it to be, not what Kubica wants it to be either, but they're in a head-to-head. That's all they can do, and Russell at the moment looking very good.